Y'all know I wrote a book, right? It's called Buy a Game, and it's free. Click the link down there, you got it.
DreAllDay.com.
What's going on, everybody? Dre Baldwin, DreAllDay.com. We are back with the next NBA season preview. Today, we are talking the Detroit Pistons. 44 wins last year, 44-38. Made it into the playoffs, third in the Central Division. Lost in the first round to the eventual champion Cleveland Cavaliers. But this is an up-and-coming team. They have a coach who is a great coach, Stan Van Gundy. Always been a great coach. Always been a fan of Stan Van Gundy's. Now, with this roster, I think Detroit can actually get better. Can they get out of the first round? I'm not sure yet, but we're going to talk about that. Let's look at their roster. So we already know Stan Van Gundy is coaching. As far as Steve Blake's on his team now, I'm not sure if Steve Blake was on the team last year. I think he's an addition. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, up-and-coming shooting guard. Andre Drummond, one of the best big men in the league right now. Only 23 years old, and the guy just eats up rebounds at a crazy level. Tobias Harris, I'm not a huge fan of Tobias Harris. He really had a spark going a year or two ago in Orlando when he pretty much became the best player on the team. He had a thing going. Then he got traded. When they traded him to Detroit, he didn't get the touches, the opportunities at the same level that he was getting in Orlando. And I really just don't think he's going to be long for this team, and I'm going to tell you why in a moment. You got Reggie Jackson, who is their leader. He's going to have to be their leader. I don't think Andre Drummond's the leader. I think point guard Reggie Jackson is going to have to be the leader. I'm not sure how much of a leader Reggie Jackson is right now. I'd say he wasn't much of a leader last season. Even though they made the playoffs, I would say he wasn't much of a leader. And if they're going to get past the first round of playoffs, he's going to have to become a leader. Andre Drummond as well. Stanley Johnson is the reason why Tobias Harris probably won't be on this team for long. Even though Tobias could play a little bit of that small ball four spot, I think Stanley Johnson could also. I think they duplicate each other. And since Stanley Johnson is the young guy, I think Tobias Harris, even though he's only 24, he might have to be the one to go. Or Stan Van, who's a great coach, may figure out a way to make both of these guys work together. But at the same time, you also had, who was the other guy? You had the Harris twin, the Morris twin, Marcus Morris. He's another guy, 27, another 6'9"-ish guy. Stanley Johnson's around 6'7", Tobias is 6'9". Again, he's that small ball forward type guy. So you got to figure out a way between the three of them. Somebody's going to have to come off the bench. Somebody's going to have to not get in as many minutes, as many touches, as many plays run for them. And I think between the three of them, somebody just has to go. I don't think you try to make that work. I think somebody has to go. Ish Smith at point guard, good backup point guard, not a bad backup point guard coming in. John Lure at power forward, also on this roster. So there's a lot of forwards here, a lot of big guys. So Stan Van's gonna have to make some decisions, get some guys out of there, and figure out what the pecking order is going to be amongst all these players right now. Because Tobias Harris I didn't even notice, he's at $17 million a season. Reggie Jackson's at $14 million. Andre Drummond at $22 million. So some decisions going to have to be made about what's going on with this roster. I don't think they didn't really make any big additions. I wouldn't say any of these additions is big. I like Steve Blake at the point guard position. I think he can be a great mentor to Reggie Jackson. And Reggie Jackson, I think, needs some mentoring at the point guard spot. Not that he can't play. He knows how to play. Reggie Jackson can put that ball in that basket. But can he lead? Can Reggie Jackson lead this team? Because if he does not lead, they're not going past the first round. I don't care how good your coach is or how many rebounds Andre Drummond grabs. They will not get out of the first round unless he becomes a leader. Now, looking at what they did last year, made the first round, got swept by the Cavs. They competed. They competed with Cleveland in their home games. Their home games in Detroit, they competed, weren't able to close it out. Reggie Jackson is a great point guard. I don't think he's at the level of a Kyrie Irving. I think Reggie Jackson is a good point guard. Kyrie Irving's a great point guard. And with the rest of the team, their best guys, the strength of the roster other than Andre Drummond, was at that forward spot. And in the Eastern Conference, if you're going to compete at the forward spot, you got to go against LeBron James, who's the best player in the world. And their best players, I think, in that series, aside from Reggie Jackson, but since he was kind of washed out by Kyrie Irving, you had the Morris twin, who is Marcus Morris. You had Tobias, and you had Stanley Johnson. And they all kind of they got into this trash talking thing, and I'll talk about that in a second. Their strength, which was those wings, those versatile wing forwards, got canceled out because you're playing against a team that has the best versatile wing forward on the planet. So I think they can win some games in a playoff series. If they play against, let's say, the Raptors in the first round, they can definitely win some games. But they're not getting out of the first round because It's not even, well, one reason is a lack of talent depth. They don't have a lot of depth of talent. Andre Drummond must step his game up to where he's a better free throw shooter so he can play late down the stretch. Also his offensive game so he can be more of a threat, just getting the ball thrown into him and doing something. Stanley Johnson, I think, will continue to improve. I think his progress will be stagnated by having Tobias Harris and Marcus Morris in the West. Neither one of them are old guys who's like, let me help the youth. No, they both are on their way up. They're trying to get themselves seen and known as well. So let's talk about the reason why I think the number one key for this team to get better is just leadership, on-court leadership. Stan Van is great, but it's the on-court leadership that this team needs. Because in that series last year, for whatever reason, they got into it with LeBron James. I don't know why so many players seem to want to get into it with LeBron, but it's not even getting into it because LeBron doesn't really engage them. He may make a couple statements, maybe talk trash during the game, who knows? But he doesn't really engage in the media back and forth thing. It really is always usually coming so much from the other side, and it's usually some young guy who got talked up by his teammates or talked up by the media, or the media baited him with a question, or maybe he's just feeling insecure in a certain way because LeBron bust his ass or whatever happened in the game, or he feel like he needs to talk trash so he can feel like he can compete with LeBron James. I don't know why this happens so many times with LeBron James. It seems to happen often, and we've seen it. If you just look at last year's playoffs, every year he's been in the league, it's always somebody saying something, and it's usually from the losing team. So the issue is, Tobias Harris, we already know, when he was in Orlando, him and LeBron had their little back and forth thing. The thing, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Then Marcus Morris was saying some things. I know Marcus Morris and Markieff Morris, being from Philly, I know they like to talk trash, tough-nosed guys, but neither one of them is better than LeBron James. So that thing was happening, another wing forward. And then Stanley Johnson, a rookie, who has no history with LeBron James, somehow, some way, I think being influenced by his older teammates who play his position, also influenced by Reggie Jackson, who is another guy who likes to get into the back and forth. He got into it with Russell Westbrook. He was influenced by that. So then he goes to the media and says, I'm definitely on LeBron James's head. When LeBron James was actually had better stats when he was being guarded by Stanley Johnson than he had against any other player on the Detroit roster. So yes, Stanley Johnson was in LeBron's head, as in LeBron's thinking, I hope Stanley Johnson guards me so I can bust his ass even more than I already been busting everybody else on their team's ass. If you look at the stats, LeBron actually played better against Stanley than anybody else. So why Stanley Johnson even made that statement? Again, I think he was being influenced by his teammates. He's only 20 years old, so he's a young guy. He doesn't know any better. And then they was getting swept. I mean, how are you going to talk trash while your team's getting swept? There was no point in that series that Stanley Johnson could say I'm in his head because they hadn't won any games. So how are you in somebody's head when your team's losing? But anyway, that's the reason overall why I think this team can't go any further. They have no leadership. There's no leadership on this team. Reggie Jackson is a leader. He is a leader. Somebody can be the leader. Marcus Morris, maybe. Tobias Harris, maybe. They are leaders, I guess. Andre Drummond, he's not as vocal a guy. But, I mean, who's leading that team to a playoff series victory? Who? You tell me. And it's not a talent thing. Leading is not about talent. Leading is about a mindset and also getting other people to follow your lead to a good place. I think the older guys, the veteran guys on that team, and Reggie Jackson's only 26. Drummond's only 23. So this is a young team. Tobias Harris only 24. This is a young team, but somebody has to lead them in the right direction. I think Steve Blake could be that type of leader if these young guys will shut the hell up and listen to a Steve Blake. And I think Stan Van's a great coach, but there's only so much the coach can do. The coach ain't out there playing. So somebody has to become a leader on this team. And short of that leadership emerging, despite the fact that they won 44 games last year, they can win another 40, I say with an improvement on every player. And being that they're all young, they should all improve as long as everyone can stay in line in team concept. I say this team can win 47, 48 games. I think this team can actually get better, win more games this year than they did last year. Unfortunately, they are going to lose in the first round again because of the leadership issue that I just brought up, and because, I mean, this ain't the all-star team. There's still other teams in the Eastern Conference with more better players top to bottom, pound for pound rosters than the Detroit Pistons. So I think that's what I see as their fate this year. And if things go south, as in some players start to worry about their own egos more than the team, which can happen when you got a lot of young, talented guys who are all maybe competing to get the same attention, the same number of shots and touches, this team can go down. They could go down to the 38-40 win range and maybe make the playoffs, losing the first round again, or miss the playoffs completely. That's possible for them. So I think they're in a range of 38-48 wins this year, just based on how the young guys respond, because I'm not sure who the leader is on this team. Someone has to emerge as the leader, or someone must be brought in to be the leader. Because right now, based on what I saw last season, they don't have one. Oh yeah, they picked up Boban from San Antonio. That'd be a good bench guy to come off and do his thing. Everybody, let me know what you think of this prognosis for the Detroit Pistons. Is there something I missed? Is there a player that I didn't talk about who I should talk about more? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, great up-and-coming shooting guard player, but he's definitely, in my opinion, I don't see him as the leader to be for this team. So what is going to happen with this Pistons team? This is a wide range that I gave myself here, but you tell me what you think they're going to do. I said between 38 and 48, just based on how the young guys do. You tell me what you think. Leave it in the comments. Y'all know what to do. The next team we're going to talk about, we'll go back to the Western Conference. We're going to talk the Portland Trailblazers. Everybody, work on your game. DreAllDay.com.